In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God. You are the light of the world, said to us by Christ. This third week in a row, remember last Sunday we heard from the Gospel of Matthew chapter 6. Sunday before that we heard from Matthew chapter 5. And again today we hear again from Matthew chapter 5. And if you know the Bible, Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7 is known as the Sermon on the Mount. And Deacon preached about it a couple of weeks ago. I preached about Christ giving a sermon, so giving a sermon about a sermon. And today, the beginning of chapter 5, Christ opens up his mouth, teaches his disciples, and the first thing he says to his disciples is, "You are the light of the world." I have a very, whenever you're a kid growing up in a Middle Eastern home, you would do something and your parents would say, "Oh, there's a saying for that." There's always a saying for something. And there's a very, very beautiful saying that if you're sitting in a dark room and you're eating or you're cooking and you just for some reason didn't turn the light on, and then someone comes in the room and turns the light on, what does that person say? Allah yanawwir alayk. Or alayki if it's a girl. May God shine his light upon you. It's a very, very beautiful saying. May God shine his light on you. And Jesus essentially says that to us today. You are the light. I have given you this light, and it's shining all over you. He has shined this light on us in a world that's filled with darkness, with death, with destruction, with chaos. And he calls on us to take this light that we all have and shine it. Let it bring light to the world. St. Paul, in his letter to Titus that Chip just read, tells us how to do this. How do you shine your light in the world? What am I supposed to do? He tells us, avoid or apply yourself to good deeds. Avoid these things: genealogies, dissensions, quarrels over the law. If after once or twice you've talked to someone who's not willing to listen, then avoid those people. Avoid people who are factious. It almost sounds contrary to Christianity. But we can't give people experiences. You can only share your own. You can't force someone to think like you think. You can't force people to change. God has given us free will. Am I not supposed to respect that person who has free will if God himself respects that person? He gave him free will. But it's not to avoid people because you don't like them. It's because it's futile. It's not going to happen. Pray for that person. Paul wrote this letter to Titus. Titus was a disciple of Paul. And he was the overseer of the church in Crete that still exists today. He wrote this to him 2,000 years ago. And these same principles, brothers and sisters, that he wrote 2,000 years ago can still be applied today. There's no new sin that has been created since the creation of Adam and Eve, since Adam and Eve were created. The darkness that existed in the world back then still is trying to permeate in the world that we're living in today. And in this world that tries every day to make it darker, to divide people, to separate us from God, Christ calls on us to be the light and to let it shine. And why? Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and do what? Give you glory? Pat? Give you glory? Give who glory? Give God the glory. You know how many unchurched people there are in this world? Just in this country? How about just on this 5-mile radius of where our church is? We are called, brothers and sisters, to bring the light of Christ into a world that is dark. I'll close by telling you this, or by saying this. He says to us, you are the light. I think I've said it about a dozen times already. He does not say, you, after a certain number of days of going to church, after a certain number of times of reading the Bible, after a certain number of times of saying Our Father, or after however many times you receive communion, he doesn't say, you will become the light. There's no training involved, essentially. We do these things in the church to help us, but he says to us, you are the light. Now, some people, many people, holier than I am, have a light that's like a fire, and it's beautiful. And there are many of us who have a little bit of a light. Those candles on the altar aren't giving much light right now. But if you come on Holy Saturday and there's one candle that's illumined, it eventually lights up the entire church. So if you're this little light, let it shine. And if you're a fire, let people enjoy it. Let them come and sit at your fire and enjoy the fire that you have. And you can give them some of your fire. You are the light, brothers and sisters. Be that light to this world that tries every day to make it darker. Christ is in our midst.